My abusive father is dying. Should I forgive him before it's too late? My brother, 33, sister, 30, and myself, 29, lived a rough life growing up. My mother was severely depressed and never got out of bed, and my dad was working 2 to 3 jobs and was never home. For what it's worth, she also watched her mom die in a car accident when she was about 13. So naturally, there were some pretty serious repercussions mentally for the rest of her life. We had lots of fun memories, like he took us to the skate park a lot and took us out to empty fields growing up to teach us how to drive stick shift, cool dad stuff like that. However, a lot of bad things happened. He would constantly get in bad physical fights with my mom, was constantly coming home drunk the few days a week he would come home, and he rarely stayed around the house. I found out recently from my mom that the whole time we were growing up, my dad received over $100,000 one year from his parents to help supplement their income while my parents were going through a tough time with work, but he spent every last dime of it on drugs, women, and drinking. She never saw a penny of it. Along with that, my mother was working a full-time job teaching and paying all the bills before she became disabled from depression. But after a while, she found out he was spending all of her money on drugs, women, and drinking as she began to receive late bill notices in the mail. She stopped trusting him to pay the bills and began doing all of that herself, along with taking care of my siblings and me full-time after school since he was not around. As things got worse between them, she ended up losing her job and having to take us out of school to homeschool us at ages 6, 7, and 12. Me being the youngest. We also had another sibling who my mom brought from a previous marriage who was 14 at this time. This was the first time it got bad. My father sexually assaulted her in some way. I do not know, nor do I wish to know the details. And my mother, being very mentally unstable at this point, essentially kicked her out of the house when she told her about it. She went to live with her real dad in the interim, and we didn't hear from her for a long time. Shortly thereafter, my sister ended up calling CPS on my mom and dad, and they came and took us away to live in separate shelters across town from each other. About a month later, we were put into foster homes, my sister and I together, and my brother in a separate one. We stayed there for about 4 months, until eventually my aunt, dad's sister, adopted us all, and this is where our lives began to return to normalcy. Fast forward to me entering high school, albeit late, and I decided at this point I wanted to live with my dad. He had made his way back to his home state, close to his parents, and was half-assedly making a living teaching at the correctional school. He had a girlfriend who had 3 kids. The oldest was my age, M, and the 2 youngest were 11F and 8F. They lived in her home in a small town. I stayed there for a year until he ended up confessing to her that, at some point in time, he was sexually assaulting the youngest daughter. I found out about this in disgusting detail just after I left, but ultimately I left and moved in with another aunt and uncle in a nearby state, my dad's other sister and her husband, a pastor. Normalcy, again. Slowly the truth began to unfold about who he was and all the disgusting, vile things he had done and whom it affected. I was mortified, disgusted, destroyed. My dad, my superhero, my best friend and biggest advocate. I didn't know what to do with myself. I spent the next few years between 15 and 18 discovering myself and deciding what I wanted to do with the information, all the while still holding on to whatever thread of a hope I had left for my dad being a good person. We were still in contact. Between 18 and 27, he had done several more absolutely foul things. I found out more about his past, and I began to grow a family of my own, which includes small girls, both mine and my fiancé's. 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, we were planning to go see all my family in Father's home state, as it was a tradition that I had missed out on several years due to financial struggles and other reasons. We planned to take all our children, but I was not going to have a pedophile around my kids. I told him he needed to leave while we were there, and that if he did not, then we would not be coming. I told the whole family. Incidentally, they liked me more than him, so they ended up pooling resources to get him a spot for the week well away from the area. He did not like that and felt put out by having to leave his home while his whole family enjoyed Thanksgiving together without him. I told him why I was doing what I was doing, and ultimately I spelled out every reason, sexual assault incident, I knew of to date, and threw it all back in his face, reminding him that I have children, and they will not be subjected to the possibility of inappropriate behavior or even allowing his imagination to run free about my children. Point blank. He continued blaming my mother and me and everyone else under the sun, and I was sick, but I'm better now. It's not like I killed anyone, the worst sin. Or even, maybe if the parents of these children are actively supervising them, to the point where I basically told him that was enough. The last straw, he will never see my children. He will never attend a birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, or family event of any kind that I or mine were attending. And he would never see his grandkids from me grow up. Then I blocked him. 2 years have passed, and he's in very poor physical health, in and out of the hospital with strokes, heart conditions, AFib, the works. I am reminiscing about the life I had with him in it, and it wasn't all bad as a kid. It was fun at times, and he was a decent father, save for the violent punishments and near abandonment. I am trying to imagine what it would be like without him around. Not very hard, as he was never really around. But he was always alive. I don't know, I'm just conflicted and don't want to regret it for the rest of my life not saying something to him before he goes. I'm just conflicted and would like some advice. TL Dear, I 29M found out my father was a pedophile when I was 15 and cut him out of my life 2 years ago. But he has been having lots of heart complications lately and may die soon. Should I make peace with him?